Hello and welcome to the Cup of Tri Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors oxygenaddict.com and fueledbycake.com. This week we've got no interview from Helen and I. We're pre-recording, so I'm going to go straight into an interview with top professional triathlete Lucy Gossage. Lucy Gossage, welcome to the Cup of Tri Triathlon podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Nice to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and we really appreciate you taking the time. So listen, first question is going to be this. We always ask people, imagine no one's ever heard of you. What are you famous for? Who are you? And why have we asked you onto the show?
I guess I'm famous for talking a lot, for being bossy, and for being a doctor and a triathlete, I guess. Famous is probably the wrong word, but...
Infamous, maybe that's the word, eh? So you've made the transition from very, very good age grouper to pro to very, very good pro over the last few years. And it's been really cool watching your results get faster and faster and the standard of races that you've been winning getting higher and higher. What are some of the big races, some of the big results over the last few years you've had?
God, I think going back to being an age grouper, my best race was actually the Vitruvian back in 2010, which I won. And that was my first big win, I think, where I really thought, oh, I'm actually quite good as an age grouper. And then 2011, same day actually, September's quite a good month for me. I won 70.3 Galway, and somehow managed to beat Rachel Joyce, who was obviously just having a bad day, but that was a blimey, did that happen moment.
Were you racing as a pro when that happened?
Yeah, so that was
So you stepped up and raced pro for the first race there, did you?
It was my second pro race. I'd actually just gone part-time at work the day before, so I thought it was a good omen. Clearly a bit of a fluke, but yeah, nice for the ego. Then the next year I went sub-9 at Challenge Barcelona and won that, so that was a pinch me, kind of another pinch me. And then the year after I won UK and Wales pretty close together. So again, I was like, oh, blimey, how did that happen? And then last year was quite mixed. I won Lanzarote, and then had a bad Kona. And I've started this year with a second place in South Africa. So yeah, ups and downs, but, more ups than downs, I would say.
So what was the year for you when you first thought, you know what, I'm considering myself to be pretty good at this sport now? Was it the Vitruvian you think was your first moment, or was it, Galway must have been the moment where you took down Rachel Joyce and you thought, hang about, what's happening here? No,
Galway, I genuinely think I think that was just a fluke. It was
You're so modest, I love this.
No,
if I beat Rachel Joyce, I'd have a t-shirt made with I beat Rachel Joyce in big letters.
I think Galway was a fluke. I think 2012 was really my breakthrough year, and I'd gone part-time in September before, and so I guess I'd had a winter of kind of a bit more time to train, more sleep and stuff. And I started off thinking, oh, that was a good race. It was a bit of a fluke. And then as they got on, I just kept racking on good result after good result. And I think when I went sub-9 at Barcelona, I kind of finished and was like, what the hell just happened? And yeah, I guess then I kind of realised, I can't be they can't all be flukes. So that was definitely a pinch me moment. I've got to start believing in myself.
Going sub-9 at Ironman for any serious male triathlete is the gold standard. And to go sub-9 as a female triathlete, and I don't mean that in a sexist sense, I mean it just in terms of the physiological differences. To go sub-9 as a female athlete puts you in probably the top 20 fastest Ironman times of all time, right?
No, not quite.
I mean, 2012, there weren't that many people going sub-9 still. That's a seriously fast performance.
Yeah, I think it was 30th or something at the time. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, I was astounded at the time, and I raced with a bum bag on my back on the bike. Like now,
Did you
nowadays
really?
I think about being aero, and I like to think I'm a bit more. Whereas I would say I raced that race like a chopper, but I clearly didn't. So
So you had a bum bag on. You went 8:58 and you had a bum bag on the bike course. That's unbelievable. That must have cost you about 20 watts.
Oh, obviously. I don't think I knew what the watts was. No, I mean, that was a great day. It is a fast course. It is a when I did it, the course has been short at various years, but when I did it, it was a proper course. So it was a genuine sub 9, and yeah, I'm proud of that. Really proud of that. But definitely
good for you. And so then rolling into 2013, and 2013, obviously the big news there was you won Ironman UK, and then you backed up 6-7 weeks later by winning Ironman Wales as well. You had some other decent results as well. You won Powerman European long distance duathlon at the start of the season, but winning UK and Wales really establishes a British athlete, I think, as, you know, that's a real marker down in the sand, isn't it?
Yeah, 2013 was an interesting year actually, because I was finishing off, well, it was the final year of my PhD, so I was starting to get a bit stressed about work and having to kind of pull my finger up a bit.
Yeah.
And I started off doing a lot of races abroad, but I realised that actually I wasn't really enjoying the travelling because it was just becoming quite stressful. I was getting out to races, working in the hotel room, not really enjoying the racing. And so I realised I had a bad time in South Africa and just hated in South Africa, in Austria, just hated the whole experience, had a bad race. And after that I thought, I'm working hard, I'm just going to race in the UK. It's easy, I enjoy it, it's nice knowing people, having friends around. And that was really the best decision because it took all the stress out of travelling. Obviously winning Ironman UK was a big result for me, even though, without being arrogant, there wasn't much competition on the day. It was quite an easy win. But to back that up with Wales 5 weeks later, which did have a strong field, was it was a big breakthrough. But I think most importantly, it just gave me the love for racing back, which I kind of lost trying to juggle the travelling with the working side of things. So it was good to kind of reassess halfway through the season and make a change.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of age group triathletes can totally relate to, the stress of trying to juggle working and training and the racing, and if you're trying to travel abroad, the stress of it can actually take away from the enjoyment, and I think that's a real challenging part of racing long distance races, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what I realised is it's better to try and prioritise one thing at a time. So if you're going to race abroad, make the decision you're going to race abroad, but you're going to set aside that week as holiday and not try and work around it, and enjoy the experience, focus on the race. So do all the bits around the race and have a bit of fun as well, because otherwise you do half-hearted work whilst you're out there. You'll do half-hearted race and nothing will be very satisfactory. So yeah, I think that's what I learned. That's what worked for me over, from the start of that year in 2013.
Yeah, sure. Now, I live quite close to Ironman UK course. I'm only about 10 miles away, so dead lucky that I get to do rides up around the course and take my athletes up around there and things like that. But I always go down and support, and my lasting memory from the 2013 race was how fast you were running with this big grin on your face. And I was standing on that part of the run course, where kind of at the top of the hill at the far end of the course where the pub is, where there's a big crowd of spectators. And as you approached with your little chap on the mountain bike with the number 1 board on, people going, "Oh my God, look how fast this woman's running." And you were like flying along and you were smiling and stuff. And it just looked as though you were really enjoying it. That's what came across to the spectators.
I loved that day. I think I had about 45 minutes on the run where I got stitch and was suffering a bit, but other than that, the whole day was just one of those float days. And I think it's easy when you're winning so comfortably. You've got a big gap. I knew that I was going. After I started the first 10 miles of the run, I knew I'd win unless I did something stupid, and that takes all the pressure off. So it was, I did. I absolutely loved the day, and it felt like the easiest Ironman I've ever done. And Paul Kay, the commentator, when I said that to him, he said, "Yeah, you're having a really good day when you say that." So yeah, I did. It just gave me the love for racing back again, which is what I needed after kind of taking it all a bit too seriously at the start of the year and letting the pressure get to me.
Well, it was certainly one of those performances where you said you felt like you were on a float day. I've just called up your splits here in the background, and you rode like a 5:20, which is obscenely fast on that course. Did you feel like you were just on one of those magic days when you were riding round, or did you feel like you were really putting the hammer down and
my Garmin died about 30 miles in, so
Ideal.
I had no idea how fast I was riding, even how far. Like, at least it was a lapped course, so I knew vaguely how many laps, how far around that was. And my parents were watching actually, so they could give me kind of rough splits of the fact that I was still ahead and, what the gaps were and things. But, yeah, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, but I had no idea. Certainly I felt good and, yeah, I seemed to be riding with a big grin on my face. Yeah, I remember coming towards the end of the bike. I knew we were vaguely close. I wasn't quite sure how far we had to go, and the camera crew was with me. I was like, "Can you just go away for a bit? I really need to have a pee." And they were like, "Okay." And I kind of had stage fright and couldn't quite go, but yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I remember talking to the camera crew. They were waiting for the lead men to come out, and I was around the T2 area, and I was chatting with the guy on the motorbike and saying, there's this young local lad, Joe Skipper at the time was in Manchester still, and I was saying, there's this young lad, Joe Skipper, and he's local, and you've got to film him. And I think he came off the bike in 4th or 5th or 6th, and I said, he's going to run really well. And as I was talking to him, the motorcyclist dude lost his balance, and he fell over with his motorbike, and his cameraman fell off the back, and I was like, oh my God, I've completely destroyed the camera work for this entire show. I was like, are you alright? Get back up. So, I'm glad they left you alone for a little while anyway, so you could go and do that. It is one of those courses, isn't it, UK though, where you feel as though you're just riding around in the countryside in the middle of nowhere, and there's no real markers apart from the fact you can see the beacon on top of the big winter hill, and it looks miles away no matter where you are. So it feels endless.
Yeah, I hadn't ridden the course before, so my sense of direction is not that great anyway. So I genuinely didn't really have a clue about where I was. Obviously, I knew where the hill was because you go out the hill and you're like, oh, I'm at the hill again. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It's quite a tough course, I think. It's quite interesting and varied, and varied road surface, varied bumps and things. And because I was riding on my own, I think there were a couple of age groupers that caught me, but most of the time I was just riding on my own. But there were so many supporters out there that it wasn't a lonely ride. It was my memories are good from that day.
It's a good, honest course. I think it's hard and hilly, and there's no free speed, and the road surface doesn't help people, and it's a proper hard athletes course. Oh
yeah, and I'll tell you what, I did not know the run was hilly. I thought it was a flat run. I know you do the 10k or whatever it is into town. And I thought, oh, this is quite nice. And
along the canal bit, and you're like, oh, happy days.
And then you're like, oh my God, this is not flat by any means. I had no idea it's a hilly run, so that was a bit of a shock to the system.
It doesn't look it on the course profile, but when you get there, there's not a single, like you said, the first 10k when you get into the town centre along that canal is lovely and flat, and then after that, it's all either steep uphill or downhill, or a gentle uphill or downhill the whole way. And I think that's why it destroys so many people's legs, because you get that kind of eccentric loading of the quads, and people just fall apart because they haven't done a 3.5 hour run where they're constantly going either uphill or downhill for it.
Yeah, and the other thing I found that I worked on before Wales actually was getting nutrition in, because I got quite a bad stitch for about 10k of it, and I think getting nutrition down when you're running a hilly course is much harder. I personally, I can't eat or drink before a downhill, so I have to eat and drink at the bottom and before I go uphill. So that's another challenge that people should think about if they are doing a hilly run. So practice.
Now that's a really good tip, actually.
Yeah.
So you take your nutrition on at the bottom of the hill and kind of consciously ease up as you go uphill.
Yeah. So I got a bit carried away on the run at one stage, trying to catch Dan, who was a lap ahead of me, but I was running a bit quicker on the downhill. But that just screwed me. I just got a really bad stitch. So in between UK and Wales, I had a couple of weeks hard training, and I did some hilly runs where I practiced taking some gels and drinks and things to work out a strategy that worked for me. I really found, thinking about landing as you exhale, putting your right foot as you exhale, I think that helped stitch for me. And having all my nutrition at the bottom, and not having anything at the top, which is hard because it means you're actually going quite a long time without any nutrition. So normally I'd have a gel every 20 minutes, whereas on a hilly course I'd have a bit more every kind of hour or every lap, depending on how long the lap was. So definitely worth thinking about if you're doing a hilly run.
That's a brilliant tip, and I think the most important part of it is here that you've gone away and you've practiced it and you've found something that works for you, because that's the key, isn't it? Finding what works for your body, and it might be different for somebody else's, but to practice and have a plan and know that the plan works. Fantastic tip, that, Lucy.
Good.
So you rolled on into, in fact, let's just also cover this. You were 9th overall at Ironman UK. So top 10 in and amongst the male pros. That must have been, like as you said, you were running down Dan Hawksworth. That must have been the best feeling in the world.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a lap ahead, so it's very easy to run someone down when they've done 30k and you've done 20k. Like,
you're being modest again. It isn't easy at all. It means you're very talented.
But, yeah, no, it was a great day, and those 2 races, Wales and UK, were brilliant for me. Really good days.
Fantastic. Right, so rolling on then from 2013 into 2014. My favourite interesting thing that you did here right from the off, and I remember reading about this on Try 24/7 at the time, was you won the Spring Ballbuster. You won the overall, and the crowd was shouting to you. Tell that story.
Well, that was funny. I wanted to race before South Africa, so Ballbuster was the only one around. And so I entered it just to, I was going to race it, but it was just a training race. And kind of started, and, I wanted to win the women's race, obviously. I just did the first run fairly comfortably, and then it was absolutely freezing. I don't know where I was in the first run, like nowhere particular. And
it always goes nuts there, doesn't it? The start of that first run, everyone runs as fast as they possibly can.
The boys were just, running away like nutters. I wasn't racing them. I was just doing my thing. But it was so cold on the bike that I think I ended up biking really hard and biking really well, particularly because there's a lot of downhill, so you get freezing. So then I just powered up the uphill. And then as I came into T2, the lady was like, "Oh, you can get him, you can get him." And I was like, "What's she going on about? You can get who?" And my fingers are completely numb, and I couldn't get my shoes on, my running shoes on, like was just sitting on the floor, and she was screaming, gotta go, you can get him. I was like, I can't get my shoes on. Eventually I got them on and started off running, and your toes in them and everything's run. And then I don't know, a mile or 2 in, someone said, "You're second." So, oh, that's what she means. And I kind of thought, second, this is pretty good. And then I caught sight of him. I was like, oh no, shit, now I'm going to have to really go for it, because you can't, if you can see someone, you've got to try and catch them, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So poor guy, I caught him going up the last hill. But he was very gracious about it. And he takes the piss out of himself about it still. So, it was quite funny.
That's absolutely brilliant. I love it. It's I've been down and done the Ballbuster a couple of times, even though it's miles away from. I live up north, so it's a good old trip down there, and I just think it's such a fantastic race. The location on top of Box Hill, it's awesome, isn't it? And like you said, you've got to get the right weather for it, because there's so much downhill. If it's a cold day, you end up shivering so much by the time you get to the bottom. Yeah. My tip for that is put on proper gloves, because honestly, my fingers were so cold. It's a good race. It's a shame. I think they cancelled it this year, which is a shame. Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, there was they didn't go ahead with it. We offered Emily and I offered a head-to-head on it, but there wasn't a race to do that, so.
Oh, bummer. Oh, well. Right, so carrying on the results from last year then, obviously you took second at Ironman South Africa, and then you took the win at Ironman Lanzarote. How did you feel about Ironman South Africa? I was really pleased, but I also raced a bit stupidly. It was a strong field, so I didn't expect second, but with retrospect, it was a very close second, and I think if I'd been a bit more sensible, then perhaps I could have won it. But I'm not taking anything away from Simone, who had the perfect day, and she raced far cleverer than me. I started the run like it was a 5k race, and suffered for it. It was a weird day. I was on my own in the swim, on my own on the bike, kind of thought I was completely out of the race, and then came into T2 and found I was in fourth, literally just behind, a minute or two behind third and second, and I think 10 minutes behind Jodie, who was leading.
So then I was like, yeah, I'm on for this. And Paul Kay, the commentator, was like, here's Lucy Gossage, and she can run quicker than anyone. And I was like, yeah, I'm Lucy Gossage, I can run quicker than anyone. And set off and was, I don't know, I think I ran 18-minute 5K or something crazy stupid, to start the marathon, which was ridiculous. So then I suffered for about 25k. Simone overtook me, was running her own race very sensibly, looked amazing, kind of gave up for a bit, and then I thought, actually no, you can't give up, you could still get second, she's in just ahead. And so I ended up running down Jodie in the last mile, I think. And it was a really close race. So it was definitely a race. Well, the run was a race. And I was really pleased with second. But not my most clever race, I don't think. But again, you learn from them, don't you?
Yeah.
And it was nice
absolutely.
to be part of a race where you're actually racing. Because that was the first time I've actually kind of raced an Ironman properly like that, head to head with other people.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because the experience of having other athletes around and having to make tactical decisions, not that it's ever affected me, but I would imagine it puts a completely different spin on your mental focus than, a race like UK where you've come off the bike 30 or 40 minutes up and, you can just run with that joy and really be enjoying the feeling of running and know that the win is safe for the whole marathon. Did you find that the mental game that was going on of I'm miles behind and now I've got to race these girls, and did that affect you, do you think?
I found it really tough keeping my head in the game, actually, on the bike, because I was literally there were two age groupers past me. I passed a couple of girls, but I didn't see anyone else. So that's a lonely 5 hours, 5.5 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And when the only splits you're getting is Jodie's miles ahead, it's kind of quite hard to keep your head in the game. But I think the take home from that race for me was, like, I thought how Simone raced it was, she was just so clever, and she did her own game, and she stuck to her race, and that's what I took with me into Lanzarote. So, Lanzarote I raced completely differently, didn't worry about what anyone else was doing, just had kind of this quiet, calm belief that if I did my race, I'd end up doing okay. Controlled the run, and it was a completely different experience. So, I learnt from Simone there. Simone's a good friend of mine. Really, really like her. So yeah, I credit Lanzarote to Simone, actually, because I did her race.
Brilliant.
there.
So at Lanzarote, calling up the splits here, it looks as though you were in the mix coming off the bike, maybe second or third, would I be right in saying that?
Third off the bike, yeah.
Third off the bike, but you were all very close together. It was within a few minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I knew that I'd bike well. I knew that one of the girls wouldn't be able to run, and is renowned for kind of biking too hard. The other girl I didn't know, but I also, I don't know, I was quite confident on that day that I would be able to run well. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I kind of, it was funny, one of my old housemate was racing as an age group, and we came out the swim. I came out the swim just behind him or just ahead of him. And he ended up, I don't know, anyway, I got out of transition ahead of him, and he caught me up on the bike fairly close by. I was like, you can ride with me, but you've got to ride behind me. I'm not having anyone saying that you're pacing me. So he kind of rode behind me for about 2/3 of the bike, actually. He kind of went away for a bit and then came back to me, and then got away on one of the downhills. And he was there kind of as some girls went past, and he was like, are you going to let them go? I was like, yeah, I'm just going to let them go. Because I had I knew what power I was riding. So, and I think for me that worked really well in that race, because it is such a tough bike. It's such a fair bike. It's very hilly. It's very windy. The run's hot and windy as well. So you can just do your own race. But actually when I went to Kona, I tried the same tactic, and that's a completely different ball game. And you can't do your own race. So what pays off on some courses doesn't pay off on the others. So it's interesting, isn't it? Different.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, firstly, talk to us. We'll come back to Kona in a minute, if that's okay, because that's going to be a very interesting part of the conversation. But you've mentioned riding with power there. How long have you been an aficionado, if you like, of riding with power? How long have you been riding with power for?
Well, I'm not sure I'm an aficionado. I got a power meter, and I knew I just rode with it, and I'm in UK and Wales. I didn't look at it, but I got the data from that, so I knew what I could ride. And then in kind of Lanzarote in South Africa, it was quite useful because I had those, you know, I knew roughly what I'd be able to ride to. I don't train particularly with it. But anyway, so I had a quark parameter, and then that died last year. So I ended up with the stages, which screwed with my head massively because the stages I've got underreads by, I don't know, about 10%. It's hard to work out exactly. So I got the stages and I was like, oh my God, I'm so rubbish. I was trying to ride Ironman watts and I couldn't do them 10 minutes. And I was killing myself to do 10 minutes at what I do for 5.5 hours. So I didn't know what was going on. And so I think actually at the end of last year, having that stages just played havoc with me because I didn't really know what I should be aiming for. My head was saying, you're only doing you're doing 30 watts less than you did last time you raced. This is rubbish. So I think it's more recently, it's maybe been a bit more disruptive than it has been kind of helpful.
Interesting. So the fact the numbers were different, even though you've got a kind of rational mind saying, well, it's a different piece of equipment and it's clearly measuring differently, it still messed with your mind to the point where
massively. And in Kona,
disruptive you,
because I hadn't had the stages that long, in Kona I didn't really know what I could hold and what I couldn't hold on it, and I ended up biking too conservatively. I think I was a bit conservative on the bike. Didn't matter anyway because I couldn't run, so the whole day was a disaster. But I think I would have been better off not having the power at all for that race because it held me back rather than motivating me.
Interesting. Yeah, so you've got to know your numbers, and it's got to be, you know, worked out for that particular power machine.
Oh, massively,
Yeah. I've got a similar story myself. When I got my first proper power meter, I got a power tap. I'd been training for about 2 years with those tax turbos that have got power, supposed power in them, and it's kind of estimated. And I put my power tap on, and it literally read about 60 watts lower than the tax had done. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst rider in the world. And nothing has changed, but everything has changed because in your head you've read like such and such is putting out these numbers, and it's natural, isn't it, to compare yourself to what other people have been telling you. And of course it's completely irrelevant that the purpose of the power meter is to allow you to compare yourself to you in the same conditions.
Yeah.
And yet our mind plays tricks on us all the time, even as relatively intelligent scientific people. It's something that really sort of interests me.
Oh, yeah, and even now, like, you know, I know what I can do on the stages. I still struggle with the fact that, you know, over a 20-mile time trial or whatever, I'm going to be holding 30 less watts on this power meter than I was last year, and
yeah.
The ego, whether it's just ego or whatever, if you've had a number that's bigger, you don't want a number that's smaller, and there's always this, am I just kidding myself? You know, and I've done tests and time trials and things, and it definitely underreads, but there's still this voice going, does it really underread, or am I just shit? So
what you need to do, you need to sell the power meter and get one that overreads, and then you'll feel like a rock star.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anybody out there knows how to fix a Stages power meter, tell Lucy, we'll get it bodged to add like 100 watts on, and you can be like, yeah, I'm putting out 400 watts. Yeah. Eat it, women.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about Kona then. You've come into it. You've got second at South Africa. You've won Lanzarote. Now, even at an age group level, there's always this massive sort of unknown going to Kona. How many people are going to be there? Is the standard going to be different? And for some people it works out really well. We interviewed a guy called Matt Malloy a while ago who had finished, I think he finished 9th at Austria, and he went to Kona thinking, there's millions of races around the world. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think he finished like 1 place lower at Kona than he had done at Austria. And all the guys who'd beaten him at Austria were also the same guys who beat him in Kona.
Yeah.
So for him, he went in not expecting much, but ended up with a really surprisingly good result, is what he said. How did that play out in your head before you went there for the first time? What were you expecting?
There's so many things I learnt from Kona. Like I really lacked confidence. Going into it, and I think there were a combination of reasons for that. I hadn't really. I think with retrospect, maybe doing 2 Ironmans so close together at the start of the season took more out of me than I kind of thought it had. I think I also.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that they were 2 weeks apart.
No, they weren't. They were 6 weeks apart.
They were 6 weeks apart.
Yeah,
really?
But they were still, and I got a bit of a running injury after South Africa, and so I think that was one thing. I think the second thing was it was my first year going full time as a pro, so I finished my PhD at the end of March last year, and I think that gave me a lot more time. And with retrospect, I was probably doing a bit too much training because I had this extra time and too much hard stuff, and so I think that was a combination. That was another factor, and I think I was just getting myself a bit psyched out. And so, going into the race, I knew that belief in myself was going to be a big issue. And then my Achilles, which has been a long-standing kind of niggle, just flared up running into the race, kind of 3-4 weeks out. And instead of kind of stopping and resting, I was so worried about the race. I was like, I've got to get my last long run in, got to get the last interval session in. Each run I did, it was just getting worse and worse, but my head was like, got to do these last sessions, got to get them in. So, I was just making the Achilles worse and worse, and working really hard on my confidence and doing quite a good job of that, and kind of convincing myself that everything would be alright, and, my Achilles would be fine. And, so I actually got to start line, and I was feeling kind of, not physically great, but kind of mentally kind of thought I'd be able to do a good race. And then, it was just a bad day. I mean, my swim wasn't dire, but the pack I was in, I was probably always going to be in the third pack. The pack I was in was way off the pace. So that was disappointing. The bike's interesting because I tried to stick to the strategy that I've done before in every other race that's worked well, which is, kind of pace it my own pace and negative split it.
Yeah.
But you can't do that in Kona, because the first half of the bike is hard, it's into a headwind and you're on your own. And then,
it's all uphill.
And, not all uphill, but it's more uphill than downhill. And then the second half, you've got mainly tailwinds, mainly downhill, and you've also got packs, like literally packs of age groupers coming past. And because the pro draft zone is, I think it's 15 meters and the age groupers is 8. Like each time an age group goes past, you have to sit back to create 15 meters. That then creates a gap that more age groupers can quite legally slot in front of. So you're just in you're literally sitting up for half the ride home. So, as I learned, it's impossible to negative split in Kona certainly from where I was in the pro field. So the bike was a disaster. I felt like I hadn't really ridden very hard at all, because I couldn't ride the second half as hard as I wanted to.
I was going to say, is that a large function of the fact of the number of packs of age group men that are coming by you and meaning you essentially have to sit up and let them go by all the time?
Yeah, and it's impossible to ride, from where I was in the pro field, it's impossible to ride your own race. It's impossible to ride properly, from where, certainly from where I was. And they're, no disrespect to the age groupers, I don't think they can do anything about it, but these were proper packs of, like pelotons coming past. Not everyone was in a peloton, but you would get pelotons coming past, and it's really hard. So, and it's also, that's quite hard mentally then, because you're sitting out, you're looking at your power, you're like, I'm doing 160 watts and I can't do any more, because if I do, I'll get into their draft zone, and then the pack goes away and then you're stuck on your own, and another paddle. Yeah, it's just almost
really
fun.
frustrating.
And then I started the run, and I knew straight away that my Achilles was going to be a problem, and it was a problem, and so I ended up walking 5 miles in. I think I walked, 18 miles in the marathon. A lot of it with Magnus Backstead. So it was a pretty disappointing Kona, but you learn, and I bounced back from it. So
yeah. And what will you take forward from that experience then for this year and future years? Some of those things, it sounds like it's going to be really challenging to do anything about. You mentioned at the start you were in the third swim pack, which is where you felt you probably should be, but they were miles off the pace. And I'd imagine once that pack is swimming at a certain pace, it's pretty difficult to bridge across to the next pack, or impossible to bridge across. And you're kind of at the mercy of whoever's leading that pack, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, trying to work on my swim is pretty critical. I think realizing that you can't just ride your own race, you have to, if I would ride the first half harder next time and try and get in a pack and use the pace line. Working on your confidence. And I think that, one of the things I'm most proud of is actually that I did bounce back, because it's hard when you get an injury. You then start doubting yourself, am I rubbish? Am I ever going to be able to race again? I mean, I'm not doing this forever. It's not a long-term career for me. So the winter was tough, particularly when I wasn't running and letting the Achilles sort itself out. I'm really proud of how I bounced back from that psychologically and physically. And also actually learning from my mistakes. So my Achilles flared up again just 3 weeks before South Africa, but this time I had the confidence to rest it and not carry on running, and realise that actually missing a couple of sessions was going to be better than doing a couple of sessions and making it worse. And so, that paid off. So I think it's made me a stronger athlete in the long run. And probably when I look back on my career in inverted commas as a triathlete, I think it will probably be one of the things I'm most proud of. Because it's easy to keep pushing yourself when you're having good days and you're doing well and you're winning, and, that's easy. Anyone can do that. But I think it's sticking with it when things are not so good, that sets kind of champions, as it were, from people who kind of quit when they start failing. So, I've learned from it.
Yeah, I like that. Now, where do you see yourself going in terms of your triathlon career? You mentioned you don't see it as a long-term thing, and obviously as a qualified doctor, you've probably got eyes on that as a future career, I would imagine. How long do you see yourself racing for, triathlon-wise?
Well, I've got a 2-year sabbatical negotiated. I really want to do a good race at Kona. So I need to get to Kona this year, and try and do a good race. Whether I can get, another 6 months, if that doesn't happen, to go next year, I'd need to talk to, like, you can't just take time out of medicine forever, indefinitely, for obvious reasons, but equally I've started something and I want to finish it. So, I'm not thinking past October. Well, I need to qualify first of all, but I'm going to get to October, see what happens then, and then make a decision.
And what's the plan in terms of points? Where are you going to pick your points up to qualify this year?
Back to Bolton.
Excellent.
Really,
we'll get to cheer you on.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So it's a little bit of a gamble, because if I get ill the week before, then it's quite late to try and find another race to get some points. But, I want to go back to Ironman UK. I've got such fond memories from it. So, I'm holding out for that and, see how it goes.
Excellent stuff. Now, in terms of qualifying and the points, where do you stand on the 50 Women to Kona initiative that's being talked about at the moment?
I think we should have 50 women. I think there's arguments for both sides. I think what annoys me at the moment actually is not the number of women they have racing, but it's the fact that it's so hard to get there that women have to do an extra Ironman compared to men to get there. So if I was a man, I would be qualified. I've got, I think, 4,000 points. That would, from an Ironman and a 70.3. Second in South Africa and second in a 70.3. And as a man, that would get me there. Yeah, as a woman, I need to do another Ironman. I need another podium to get there. And I think that just, asking people to do 3 Ironmans in a year takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, very much so. It's not fair, is it? It's, if you're good enough to be at Kona, you should be able to get there, like you said, off one good Ironman race and one good 70.3 race, and you've proven that you're the standard to get there. And more than anything, it should just be equal.
Yeah,
it's not 1972, is it?
I think that, and that some of the pro women fields aren't equal to men, but I think in the big races, in the championship races, the depth of the women's field is just as good as the depth in the men's field. And actually I think we're seeing more exciting races. The South Africa race, the women's race was far more exciting than the men's race. There was a lot of changing around in positions, whereas the men race, Freddie Van Leerd was miles ahead all day. And I think you're getting that in all the women's races. So to argue that we're not competitive, I think at the front end is not fair. I think there isn't the same depth as there is in the men. so 50th to 60th is probably not the same. Arguably 40th to 50th isn't the same women to men, but that doesn't mean it won't be one day. And it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the only way to do it, I think, is to let 50 women get there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And more than anything, the whole point of equality is that we give everybody the same chance. And if on the first hand you're saying that you have to race an extra whole Ironman, well, that isn't fair in itself. But to say that, that the lady in 35th, 6th, 7th place isn't equal to the man in 35th, 6th, 7th place, you could just have easily had a woman coming through from that position to the podium in the same way that, was it Ben Hoffman who was ranked outside the top 40 last year and then finished second? That could just as easily happen with a woman who's in the same position as he is in terms of injuries and the season doesn't go well. It could be you. It could just easily be you that just finishes outside that top 35 as it currently is, and yet could be within a real podium chance on the day in Kona if everything goes well.
Yeah, I just think that the WTC's approach to it is, Andrew Messick did an interview on Ironman Talk last week or a couple of weeks ago, and he said it's easier for women to qualify as a man. And I put a tweet out and said, how on earth is it easier for a woman to qualify as a man? I come second in the championship race, yet I still need another podium to get there. There's no way that, okay, it might be slightly easier for me to get a podium in Ironman UK than for a man to get a podium in Ironman UK, but I still need to do another Ironman. And an Ironman, an Ironman takes a hell of a lot out of you, no matter how easily you do it. I just think that's such an arrogant, short-sighted comment, and he didn't respond to me on Twitter. I just the arrogance.
Funny that
the arrogance of the WTC. It angers me and it frustrates me, and it frustrates even more because I'm playing along with their stupid system because I want to race the best in the world at Kona, and at the moment Kona is the only place that you can race all the best in the world. So I'm going along with a stupid system that I don't agree with, just because I want, they've got us hooked and they've got us prisoners.
It seems a shame as well, because I thought if anyone is the person to change the system, Messick seems like the kind of forward-thinking CEO that's done so much for the perception of Ironman around the world and changed a lot of the very silly practices that went on a few years ago before he was CEO. Seems like if anyone's the guy to do it, he is, and I hope something goes on in the back room where they make a decision, and really what have they got to lose? They get so much positive PR from it. Everyone wins for the sake of 15 places on the pier.
Well, do you know what happened last year? It's not that widely known, but 8 weeks before Kona, because of some pressure from some of the leading pros, at that stage, he offered women pros an extra, I can't remember whether it's 10 or 15 slots. So this is 8 weeks before Kona, after everyone had been chasing around the world, trying to get points. Someone had done, I think, Kristen Muller had done 3 Ironmans in 5 weeks to get enough points to get there. To then suddenly say, okay, you can have 10 extra slots at this stage, that close to the game. And the caveat with those slots was that every woman that qualified had to give up a day's free labour to go and be do something for women's promotion, women's support for Ironman. The men didn't have to do it, just the women. And it was a now or never offer. I just can't understand why that was anything more than a publicity stunt. If it was anything more than a publicity stunt, it would have stood for this year as well, because the pros quite rightly said, we'd love this offer for next year. We can't do it for this year because you're then getting people who are tired from doing these extra races disadvantaged against people who haven't done the extra races.
I did not know that.
I don't think it's that. I mean, it's not private, but I don't think it's that widely known amongst age groupers. So to do that, 8 weeks before the race, when everyone's changed their goals, spent the whole season committing to Ironman, not doing challenge races, to do it on a now or never basis, and to have the bargaining thing that you have to do it, give up a day to go and be can't hear the wording, something to promote women's sport for Ironman. It's basically free labour for them. It's just ridiculous. Anyway.
Do you think it'll happen? Do you think they'll change their policy? Do you think there's enough pressure on them, or do you just think they'll do what they want to?
I suspect they probably will next year. I think it's getting a bit late this year, to be honest, anyway, because everyone's, making their season's goals, and it's not really fair to change it mid-season. I think if they were going to do it, they should probably have done it before this round of championship races. But I hope they do. I hope they do next year.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. It can only be a positive thing if they do, can't it? So listen, before we finish, I'm aware I've taken up much more of your time than I said I was going to, Lucy. Something that you could pass on for our age groups, if you could pass on one tip from what you've learned from being, super, super busy, trying to do your PhD and train at the same time, and now you're in this position where you're essentially a full-time athlete for a while, what tips would you give to your former self in terms of trying to improve your performance in years past when you had all that extra stuff going on?
It's going to sound arrogant, but I think I did it pretty well, actually. when I was working as a proper doctor, I was pretty good at cramming everything in.
What are the tips for doing that then? If you're,
I think
obviously you've managed to do it really well.
The things what's important? I think the most important thing for me is keeping it fun. So that's whether I do it as a pro or as an age grouper, that's critical for me. It's not critical for everyone, but finding a club, training with people, spicing it up, doing, races for fun, not letting your ego get in the way of things. I think that's really important. When I was working as a doctor, I used to use my commute for training a lot. So I'd run into work and ride home, or, I don't know, run in one day, long in the evening. So that's kind of free time. So that's really good.
And it's fun as well, isn't it? That's the thing. It feels like it's an escapade when you're weaving through traffic and everyone else is stuck in their metal box. I think that's the best payback you can possibly have.
Yeah, and also if you don't give yourself an option of getting home, if your car's not there and you have to run, then you've got to run to get home. So it's quite a good way of getting out of the ones that you don't want to do. Yeah, so I guess those are my key things. But I think for me, the most important is keeping it fun, and perhaps not overtraining. I think I have a tendency to do too much rather than too little. So, I hope I'm learning a little bit from that.
Good stuff. Now listen, let's talk about some of the people who've helped you be a pro triathlete, some of your sponsors and supporters and people like that. Who have been the people who we can give a shout out to say thanks very much for helping Lucy Gossage out along the way?
Oh gosh, my main sponsor is Erdinger Alcohol Free, the alcoholic free or alcohol free beer isotonic recovery drink. And they really make it possible for me actually to be a full-time pro. So I'm really lucky to be on their pro team. And it's great actually because it is a proper team, and there's quite a lot of camaraderie and we go around the training camp each year, but through that you get a lot of bonding, and I think the girls in particular are very supportive of each other, even when we're racing together. So yeah, without Erdinger, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing because financially they make it possible. I've got too many other sponsors to name them all. I hope I'll remember them all. Blue 70, who've been with me since I started. Block Sunglasses, who've been with me since I started. CEP Compression, just signed with them. Boardman Bikes, Casco Helmets, Socony Running, Meridian Foods, Peanut Butter, and match that butter as I want. What else could I ask for?
Do you know Helen just won a year's supply of peanut butter? She's so excited. She won it through like a Twitter competition.
They were my first ever sponsor actually. I remember I got into work and I've got a sponsor, it's so exciting, and everyone's like, what have you got? You're getting a bike, you're getting some money. No, it's better than that, peanut butter. I was really excited about that. Yeah, and I'm coached by Chris Hunt, who's a friend from Nottingham. He's known me ever since I started. And Simon Morley in Cambridge is really helping me a lot with my swimming. And Tim Williams in Cambridge has helped me along the way as well. So yeah, pretty lucky.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. You've been on the phone for absolutely ages. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us. It's been a great interview. I I really look forward to cheering you on at Ironman UK this year. I'll be there with my crew somewhere on the run course, and probably with the guys from Knutsford Tri Club banging pots and pans on the side of the road. So we'll give you a shout as you go by. And I really hope that you manage to have a fantastically successful Kona this year, because it'd be great to see you put a performance out there that would get you known on the world stage in the same level that we know you over in Great Britain.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, can I just going to mention lightweight wheels, skin fit, watt bike. And Rich from who does my massages. Sorry, I forgot all of those. Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much. Great to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome. All right, listen, take care of yourself, and I hope we can have you back on the show later in the year when you're back up on the podium in Kona where you deserve to be.
Yeah, in your dreams, but we'll see.
In your dreams, mate. In reality. Come on, let's make it happen.
Cheers, Rob.
Okay, Lucy, thanks very much. Speak to you again soon. Bye now.